Hi there everybody, my name is Kendra, welcome here. If you've been around the knitting community either on YouTube or on Instagram, you've probably seen a lot of mohair lately. I know that it's quite popular to hold a strand of mohair while you knit with another yarn, and it makes a really fuzzy, sort of warm, cozy fabric. And I have never done that myself, and so I picked up a couple kinds of mohair from Knit Picks. This is the Aloft line, and mohair is good in that it's lace weight and you get quite a lot of yardage for one little ball. It's super thin, but again, that fuzz on there is just really crazy, and it makes apparently a really nice fabric. But I thought it would be fun to use a bare yarn and dye it in a more busy sort of speckly color and hold it together, since the mohair does mute it down quite a bit in things I've seen. So I'm going to start with the dyeing, and then I'm going to knit it up and bring you along for the whole process. So for my main color, I'm going to be using the Knit Picks Stroll Fingering, and when you purchase this in a color, it comes in 50-gram balls. However, the undyed version comes in 100 grams, and so with that 100 grams you get 100% superwash wool, 437 yards. Now I've done quite a lot of dyeing, but full disclosure, I really haven't done a ton of speckled, especially really crisp speckles, and I've read different things on what works well, so we're just going to kind of experiment. Let's see what we can come up with. So first things first, I'm going to prep my yarn. Now of course this comes in a skein already, so that'll be really easy, and typically when I dye I do soak my yarn first. However, I'm going to leave it dry because dry is supposed to soak up the colors better rather than disperse it more evenly when it is wet already. I only have a small amount of water in here. I am going to place my yarn directly on. Now some people of course use some sort of like steaming method or steaming basket. I am going to steam it, but I am also going to submerge the very bottom layer. Okay, so I think I have a game plan. I am going to try to mix a tealy blue, something that reminds me of this color here, for my first speckle, and I'm going to mix that wet because I don't have a color like that. And then I'm going to try to do some dry speckling with one of these more pinky purpley shades. I have, well, maybe just magenta, but I also have a couple fiber reactive dyes that, as long as they're mixed with vinegar or citric acid, should take, and I'm going to try that for the wet speckling and then steam set it in the end. So this is what I'm starting with. I have no idea if it's going to turn out that way, but let's see. I'm going to apply my first layer with this little dropper that came with Infant's Tylenol that has been well washed and has now been demoted to being dyed with. And I just want to get small amounts throughout the yarn. Again, this is the first layer, and I'm going to be layering more colors on after this is set. So it looks like my yarn did get mostly wet. So the top is a little bit dry, but it's quite damp. I do have some water to the side, so if it looks like the water is getting used up, I can throw some more on there because I don't want to burn it. But I'm going to add some vinegar to my color and start dropping it on. Mixed up way too much of this color, but that's okay. I'm going to move on to my purpley color, which I'll be adding dry as my next step. So I do want to use Razzle Dazzle because I think it will be just the perfect color. However, It does need to for sure be set with the acid or else it won't work at all. But I'm going to sprinkle it dry and then I'm going to try to steam it with the vinegar after and see if that helps it to stick. I've seen this done either just shaking it off with a spoon or with a little strainer, which I do have here. So I'm going to try it with the strainer first and see if it's too clumpy. Otherwise, I will try it with a spoon. Give this a minute and then I'm going to add some vinegar water because my water level is getting low, but I want to do my best to keep the speckles as contained as possible. Try to just break the fall on the sides. It is causing some spreading, especially in this middle part here. Right in here where it's sitting a little more, the yarn is lower, but either way it needed more moisture or else it was going to have some problems. My thought right now is I'm going to let this steam and then I'm going to try to flip it so that I can add a speckle to the back side, or at least stir it so that I don't end up with one half that's bare. And I'm going to mix up a purpley color to be added in. That razzle dazzle is definitely starting to split. You can see the yellow and the blues and things that are all mixed in there that weren't there originally. There's no color bleeding, which is a really good sign, but I will do multiple rinses just to make sure that we get both the vinegar and all the dye, if there is any excess, rinsed right off. So here is the final dyed yarn. So you can see the deep reddish magenta, which was the razzle dazzle dye that was applied by the powder, and you can see that it is quite concentrated in certain areas where when I tapped it on, there were parts that had more dye, which made the stronger, more intense color, but then there were also some lighter spots that made for really teeny tiny speckles. Both the teal and the purple, you can see them, but they're a lot more subtle, and even though with the liquid application each speckle is larger, it still represents less of the total speckle. Adding the dye in dry really did provide variation in the color, and you can also see areas where the color broke, which means that since it was not a primary color, the component colors separated a little bit that made up the razzle dazzle. And this is why I decided to mix the other ones as a liquid, because when mixing powders together, I just didn't think I'd be able to predict what the final color would be, whereas as a liquid you can see what it looks like. So now I'm going to knit this yarn up by holding one strand of the dyed yarn with one strand of the aloft mohair. I am knitting a simple hat with a folded brim and a broken rib stitch. I did not use a pattern for this, I just tried it on as I went until I was happy with the final size. I'll show you a few clips of me kind of knitting it up, so if you want to see the progression of how the hat came together, and then I will kind of wrap it up and talk about my thoughts of how I thought the dye went and worked with the mohair at the end. that I ended up with by mixing the mohair with the dyed yarn. I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I guess some thoughts. First of all, when I first got the yarn out, I thought, oh, I should have added more of that green. But then when it's mixed, the green is so dominant that I think, well, maybe I should have mixed more of like the purple side of it, because the pink is definitely the strongest, and that is the dye that I added in dry, and it did split a bit. So there is some like yellows and the colors that contribute to that pink color, you know, showing up there. But really, for the first time I've experimented with a lot of dry application, I'm really surprised by how strong it is, and I can see that's how to get the teeny tiny little speckles. However, it's hard not to have a heavy hand with it. The purple, I could have added more. It's really not that strong coming through in the hat, but overall I really like how it has the teal look, which is, I mean, I didn't want it to be super white, but it still has a lot of variation. I also like with the pattern that you can wear it either way out, and that I think it looks good either folded brim, where you have really a lot of layers over your ears since the folded brim is then doubled, or you can wear it slouchy, and I think it looks pretty nice that way as well. Overall, I think it's gonna be a really fun, nice warm hat, and I'm gonna wear it a lot, and really I want to knit more with mohair now, so let's see where that goes. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more videos, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.